Leave me alone! It was worth it!
Natasha, please! Stop! People are watching! Natasha, what is going on? Why is it that when these men carry you, they give you billions, millions? What is your secret? My sister, there is nothing. There is no secret juju. This is a natural gift from my mother.
The world stops when these two step out. Look at them. This is the life they dreamed of. This is the Lagos hustle perfected. Their swagger, their confidence. That is currency here. But not everyone can afford the high life. The price often involves things money can't buy back. This is the story of Natasha and Pamela. They were inseparable. They were two young Nigerian girls, bonded by ambition and a shared past of eating dust, a past where hunger was their only motivation. They both vowed they would never return to that life. They rose together. Pamela, all grace and sharp eyes, handled the networking. Natasha, driven and ruthless, focused on the execution. But soon, the envy grew. Pamela noticed the scale of Natasha's success was pulling far ahead of her own. The money Natasha was getting wasn't just hustled, it was instant. One day, Pamela confronted her friend, her voice low with suspicion, surrounded by the very luxury they had fought for. Natasha, what is going on? What is the secret you are not telling me? Why is it that when these men carry you, they give you billions, millions? What is your secret? Natasha, cool and smooth, just laughed it off. She had her lie ready. My sister, there is nothing. There is no secret juju. This is a natural gift from my mother. Look at me. My hip, my waist, everywhere is well curved and tight in my body. That is the magic. They cannot resist the perfect shape. She lied. And Pamela, though skeptical, had to accept the lie because the truth was too frightening to imagine. When the cat wants to eat its own kitten, it accuses it of smelling like a rat. Pamela tried to ignore the suspicion, convincing herself that Natasha was simply lucky. But luck runs out. What Natasha had wasn't luck. It was a secret. A very dark, very powerful shortcut. Natasha had walked a path Pamela dared not tread. She had entered the dangerous world of ritual power, connecting with the men who controlled the occult wealth of the city, the dreaded Yahoo boys. These men needed certain items for their charms and sacrifices. And Natasha, protected by a bead her spiritual grandmother had given her, she believed she could trick the spirits. She supplied what they needed, her most personal items, and in return, she demanded an unimaginable fee. The wealth poured in like a flood. Every new car, every expensive wig, every exclusive trip was paid for by this ritual exchange. She had bought her way out of poverty, and she believed her bead would protect her from the spiritual debt. But a debt owed to darkness must always be paid. Meanwhile, Pamela began to dig. She noticed the strange, hurried errands, the secretive phone calls, and, finally, the chilling evidence. A pair of bright red panties, clearly marked with ritual chalk, hidden in Natasha's drawer. The catapult pants. They weren't just fabric, they were the physical anchor of Natasha's unholy pact. Pamela's jealousy instantly turned to terror. She had seen the rise, now she was about to witness the fall. Natasha knew her value. She moved with purpose. She would check into the most exclusive, 5-star hotels in the city, the type where the marble shines and silence costs a fortune. She was always dressed to perfection, looking like $1 million, even though she was about to collect billions. One of her main clients was a powerful, chilling figure known only as Mr. Marcos. The atmosphere was never romantic, it was a transaction masked by luxury. Natasha would sit opposite him, perhaps on a plush velvet couch. They would often start by exchanging glasses of expensive champagne, a silent toast to the pact they were about to renew. The room would be dimly lit, overlooking the vast, glittering city, the city they were both exploiting. The game was simple, but terrifying. She would spend a night with the men, securing their trust, acting the part of the sophisticated muse. But the real transaction happened behind closed doors. Every single time, after the ritualistic act, she handed over her most personal, intimate item, her undergarments. This was the fuel for their dark charms, the payment they demanded to make their scams succeed. Every time she handed over her item, she knew she was funding a sinister ritual. She felt the chill of the pact, But the rush of the money was warmer. She bought the fastest cars, the sleek G-Wagon, the Range Rover, and secured a penthouse that looked down on the rest of Lagos. This was her system. She thought she was invincible. Her protection. A small, unremarkable protective bead gifted by her spiritual grandmother. Natasha believed this bead was the ultimate cheat code. It would let her profit from the juju without paying the spiritual price. She was taking from the darkness while claiming the light. She was the queen of the high life, the ultimate big girl. But every moment of luxury, every designer bag, every trip she took in a first-class car, every glass of champagne she sipped, was a constant reminder of the ritual, the lie, and the debt owed to powers far greater than her bead. Natasha believed her bead was invincible. She had defied the spirits, accumulated untold wealth, and laughed in the face of karma. But no power passes power. The bead, the charm, the little shield of faith, was no match for the forces Natasha had greedily provoked. It wasn't a slow breakdown. It was a sudden, public collapse, triggered by a moment of hubris. She was at the peak of her big girl persona, dancing confidently, perhaps even twerking on a raised platform, feeling untouchable. The music was loud, the champagne flowing, and every eye was on her. This was her moment, her public declaration of victory over her past. Then, it happened. In the middle of a powerful dance move, or perhaps as she dramatically tossed her head back in laughter, a sharp, tiny crack. The bead. Her sacred protection. It didn't just fail, it shattered. It flew from her, scattering into tiny fragments across the expensive floor, each piece twinkling like a broken promise. The music in her mind stopped. The laughter turned to a scream that only she could hear at first. Then, the juju struck back. It didn't just take her money, it took her mind. The madness arrived like a sudden storm, not in private, but right there, in front of the flashing cameras and the stunned, bewildered crowd. Natasha began screaming, tearing at her expensive clothes. Her makeup ran down her face as if her inner turmoil was spilling out. She was speaking in tongues that weren't hers, pointing and accusing unseen figures, writhing on the very ground she had just danced on. The guards rushed towards her, but she fought them off with unnatural strength, her eyes wide with terror and something else, something ancient and malevolent. She was no longer Natasha, she was a vessel. In a moment of pure, terrifying climax, as the crowd recoiled in horror, she reached into her bag. Not for a phone, not for a weapon, but for the very item that started it all, the bright red ritual pants, the catapult pants. She pulled them out and began waving them wildly, like a flag of her own destruction, right there in the middle of the chaotic scene. In the middle of this harrowing, chaotic scene, one figure was frozen, Pamela. She didn't run. She stood there, watching her friend, the girl who shared her dreams, the girl who lied about her natural gift, now completely broken. The sight was a punch to the soul. Pamela was shocked, tears streaming down her face, not just from sorrow, but from a gut-wrenching realization. She realized right then that the reason Natasha was so rich, the reason she was so successful, was because her friend had been brutally used for money, exchanging her very being, her very pants, for billions. Natasha wasn't just a friend, she had been a ritual sacrifice who managed to walk away with the money, until now. The fly that does not heed advice follows the corpse into the grave. Her secret was no longer a secret. It was a terrifying, public spectacle. The $1 million undies
Natasha,
had become
please,
the evidence
stop.
of her ruin.
People are
Pamela
watching.
had watched her friend soar and now watched her crash. The rivalry, the envy, the betrayal, it was instantly forgotten. All that mattered was saving the person she had once loved. But salvation would not come from money, it would come from faith. Against the warnings of everyone, Pamela dragged the tormented Natasha, fighting and biting, towards Evangelist Gideon's church. The sight was horrific. A formerly beautiful, rich girl now reduced to a screaming, spiritually enslaved wreck, still clutching the cursed red pants. The final battle took place at the altar. It was a long, desperate, and loud deliverance session. The pastor battled the greed and the spirit that Natasha's ambition had welcomed, demanding the return of the soul that had been sold for a luxury lifestyle. The spirit was cast out, but the scars remained. The lesson was etched onto the soul of the entire city. We ask ourselves, was the money worth the madness? Was the fast car worth losing your mind? The story of Natasha and Pamela answers this. Every choice has a consequence, and the pursuit of money at the cost of your soul is the most expensive price tag of all. This story is not just about juju and ritual pants, it is about friendship, the lure of quick wealth, and the simple truth that sometimes, the shortcut is the longest road to destruction. What would you have done if you were Pamela? Would you have risked everything to save your friend, or would you have walked away? Tell us your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video, share it with a friend, and hit that subscribe button right now so you don't miss the next powerful drama from African cinematic tale. We promise you, the drama in our next story is even bigger. Thanks for watching and stay blessed.